Okay, I'm gonna show this really fast because I just did a video and it wasn't going, even though I thought it was going. So here's the most important family in this cemetery, the Becksteads, which founded South Jordan. At the other end, the Garsides, like top 4. The Garsides. Here's a November 7th right there. Okay, it's a few down from the Becksteads. The same guy right here. November 7th. Those 3 all have prophetic births on them. You go straight. Nelson's, November prophet Joseph F. Smith, future prophet Elder Oaks. You keep going. This one I may be reading into, but it's got the December with kitty corner up, the 23, which would be Joseph's. The next one has a Sharon, okay, which has my name, the town Joseph Smith was born. This one has no dates. The next one has 2 prophets. It has Monson's and Joseph's, as well as Svetlana's birthday with AMI pattern. Same order, Aaron Madison Iconal. The next one has the November 8th, close to me, as well as the November 21st. That one I could be reading into. And then that's it. It has a 1977. I don't really put much into that. Okay. But are we sure that's not a coincidence, right? Because we've only had one symbol that is direct to me, even though there's a lot of prophetic symbols very, very strong in that row. With the Sharon, which the Lord has tied to me. A few down from the November 7th, look. A Vera with a November 5th and November 12th. I was born in between those dates. Look, the one next to that, the very next one next to the Vera has my dad's. Okay. And then look at this. So there is the 2 with my parents. Look at the next one. An Aaron with Hunter's birth year, and Joseph's birthday with a McKay, same name. I've Googled it, same name, just has an extra A, same name, comes from the same name. March 13th, which to me represents ordination, the day President Hinckley was organized, the prophet that made the greatest symbol on me. Look at the symmetry here. Now, if you draw a line through the Aaron and all those prophetic symbols through my dad's birthday, look at where it goes, the very, very next one. The very, very next one, a Dennis. With a prophetic birthday, George Albert Smith, as well as my wife's birthday, which I don't believe is a coincidence. Okay, so showed all that. There's a second Aaron, which I believe strengthens all this. Right here, you can, if you go through the Aaron, forget the stone or the grave, just in this sense, focus on the symbols. And then you go through the other Aaron with the March 13th, which represents the ordination of a prophet, the birth of a prophet, 1907, through the Aaron. It goes almost exactly through the Vera, right here. So there's the Vera, but it don't matter. And I could see, because his grave, if you're going through the centers, it would then just go through the center of the Vera and that. I'm just making sense of it, is all. Okay. Now, look at this. My birth year, switch the 9 and the 0. This is why I don't believe that's coincidence. My patriarchal blessing date, July 2nd. Joseph Smith's death date, June 27th. Watch this. Look at the next one, diagonal. The town Joseph was born in, Sharon, which has my name, Aaron, which represents a lady that gives birth to an Aaron. Look at where it goes, right into, it's perfect. So my patriarchal blessing date, Joseph's death date, and Lord's hinting 1980. You go through the Sharon, 1980. He's talking about a birth, Aaron, Sharon, and Joseph Smith. Look at this, the very next one, it skips that Aaron, goes in between. It hits this, which has the 1977. My brother was born in 1970, and then it hits this. Joseph's birthday, a prophet's birth year 2 times, 1907, with the Aaron and the March 13th. And then that line would hit basically the corner of the Dennis symbol, and then it would go across the street and hit the Dennis. That's unbelievably strong. You cannot tell me that I'm not interpreting this correctly. There's no way. There's no way. There's another one which is maybe less strong. November Prophet Hunter. And then my daughter's kitty corner with a 1908 that also has the 1980 pattern, as well as a 1907. And that in Elder Christofferson could be the prophet. Also Elizabeth Smart symbol. I don't know about that, but it does have the April 6th. Birth of the Church in Fayette, New York, which has my mom's name, Faye. But you go through this November, you can get it through basically the side, hit the corner of my patriarchal blessing date with the 1890, the June 27th, then it hits the Sharon right there. And who also is the Sharon? It's the Vera. Then it hits the Vera. It makes sense. It literally makes sense, that one. Let me see here. The January 24th, my daughter's, which has, let's see here, which has, look at this. It has Hunter's, it has Monson's birth year, and I believe mine. I believe that's what he's saying, and that's why it's with my daughter's. January 24th, 1980. Also has the William. That part may not be coincidence, but okay. And so it goes through that. It goes through the Rosa Blake. I don't know what her birthday is. Then it goes through the other Aaron right there. And then it goes through that Aaron with the 1907. That's pretty good. But let's look at this real fast. So a couple down from the Sharon, you have the Vera pattern. That name, Verla, comes from Vera. So Vera, basically, look, a few down from the Sharon. So he's confirming that Vera is, in a sense, in some ways, Sharon with a Paul. I don't know about that. And then kitty corner from this Sharon is another Vera pattern, which then hits Joseph Smith's birthday and Monson's. And look at that. I didn't notice that. Oh my goodness. I did not notice that. See, sometimes he throws me off so that later I'll notice it, so that the constant sensations are varied. But I got my patriarchal blessing the day before this person passed. I didn't notice the 2004. I was only, look at that, Svetlana's birthday. He's basically, look at that. Look at that, my patriarchal blessing. That's literally what he's saying here. It doesn't need to be a 2. As a matter of fact, that is far stronger than 3 July 2nds. Look, Aaron Madison Icono, AMI. Correct wife, former wife, 2 prophets' birthdays. Look at that. It's perfect. Again, the Sharon is strengthened by that Vera. Verla comes from Vera. Verda, I do not think, comes from Vera, but it doesn't matter. The Lord doesn't have to play by our rules. That Verda is there for a reason, and I don't know all these dates. She's next to an Elizabeth, which denotes important birth of the blood of Aaron, the name Aaron. John represented the priesthood of Aaron. This is not coincidence. I didn't know about this one, so it goes right. It's perfect. No cutting corners through the Verla, which is right next to a 1907, which is then right next to a 1927. Those could be coincidence. And then let's also say that the Verla is in the same row as the Aaron. And again, no, the Verda right over there is in the same row as this Aaron right there. Okay. And then the Sharon right there is basically, she's a little off, but it's obviously this row, to the Verla, which is Vera. I've Googled it. Huh. Now, here's another way to look at this. The Verda goes through the November 8th. Does it get closer to me with a prophet's year, Monson? Then it perfectly goes through the Vera. Oh my goodness. This is just too special. And I'm going to recap really fast the November 7th. I'm just going to recap this one really fast. Here's the November 7th right here. And here's the same guy because he was in the military, U.S. Navy. So he gets 2, right? In perfect symmetry, look. Those 3 are all prophetic. Right there is Nelson's, right there. To the left, a November prophet with it on the decade, 70, like me, a decade before me. And then the next one, a future prophet, Oaks. Let's see, I don't think there's anything here except an Elizabeth. This may be one of those cases where I'm compelled by, sometimes I even buy into it. And so there's those 3, and there is the November 7th, which it has 2, which does defy the odds. Most graves don't get 2 graves symbols. So, and then here you have the December and the 23rd diagonal. Oh my goodness. Wow, look at this. I just noticed this. I don't believe that's a coincidence. So look at this. You have the December 23 pattern and you have the August 21st. That's 2 prophets. Because you have the August 21st, I'm now convinced that the December 23 diagonal is not coincidence. So now you have 2 prophets on this. You have 3 prophets here. So that's a total of 5 prophets right there. One of them being the most important prophet, Joseph Smith. And these 3, which are similar in, well, color, they just look like they fit, right? Is the perfect symmetry with the November 7th and then the Elizabeth. And then there's something over there. I know it's not a coincidence, but this is not the video for that. It may be connected to this, but I'm not going to try to draw a line or anything like that. Okay, so you have 5 prophetic symbols right there that I'm now 100% convinced are not coincidence. Look, the very next one, the Sharon, a different Sharon. Huh. And then that has the William, the I am. Okay, not much on that other than the I am. Maybe that's why there's not much on it, because he's saying yes, interpret it that way. And he can do what he wants. And then look, again, 2 prophetic symbols. Look, August, Monson's, and Joseph's. By the way, that just convinced me more that I'm interpreting this correctly. This one also has the Monson and Joseph. If you go diagonal, look at that. I'm now convinced. Look, with the Sharon, I'm now convinced that he's confirming that. And look, they're on the same side, the right side, with the August 1st. Look at that. Both together with my patriarchal blessing. And I got my patriarchal blessing at night. So it was much closer to July 3rd than it was July 4th. Or sorry, July 1st. With my first wife, this is not coincidence. Erin Madison Iacono, AMI. No doubt. And neither is the November 8th, with Monson's birth year next to Monson's birthday. No, it's not. I'm telling you. And then all the divine lines that I showed. And there's more over here, but this is not for this video.